Wow.
Yeah. Oh
Okay, so
yeah.
we're live with another Misfit Playbook interview, and this time we have, actually, you should introduce yourself. I don't need to introduce you.
Yeah. I'm Jackie Lee Shelley, and this is my daughter Harmony joining us today.
Hi, Harmony. So, as our other Misfit interview series has gone on, what we're doing here is we're talking about the Misfit principles, and we're trying to just talk with you and other Misfits about some step-by-step or plays that you would want to share with other people if they wanted to live that particular Misfit principle. So that's really what we're doing, and these are out there for people to listen to, and they also are going to become part of our Misfit Playbook, the book.
Awesome.
So when you think about all the Misfit Playbook, all the principles that we have in the Misfit Playbook so far, which one resonates with you that you want to talk about today?
Um, I actually wrote the chapter on be passionate, and it's been a while since I looked at it, but I just sort of assumed that that would be the one I was talking about, so that was the only
Sweet.
one I really focused on. Um, and actually, it's kind of good that I don't remember in detail what I did before because it allows me to take it in a new direction as well. But I do remember, just as a starting point, that the way I write when I write a chapter or anything really is I kind of do a brain dump first and write a whole lot. So like just tons and tons and tons of words, and then I cut out most of it later. And so part that got cut out was I got really interested in the history of the word passion when I first wrote that essay, and so maybe I can talk a little bit about that because that's what came to mind right away. So, but yeah.
And what we'd like to do in this is to come up with like your version of, if there's 5 steps that you could give to people about
Hmm.
how to be passionate.
How to be passionate.
Yeah,
Okay.
so if you could think of, so somebody opens up our Misfit Playbook and they're going to say, I really want to maybe be passionate and focus on that principle this month. So I'm going to look up Jackie's play and say, according to Jackie, this is the this is what I should try to practice. These are the kind of the play-by-play.
It is
So
sort of funny just to
it's
imagine someone wanting to, feeling like they don't know how to be passionate and wanting to be more passionate, and maybe that's why I originally picked that one out. I mean, apart from the fact that some of them were not available or whatever, but that to not be passionate is almost completely foreign to me. Like to need to go looking for how to do that. So
so what does it
it's
mean to
it's
be
interesting.
passionate for you? What does it mean to be
Um,
passionate?
the word that comes to mind is intensity. Like this is something that um, at one point I think I almost took that word as like an insult or it was a hurtful thing when people would tell me I was too intense, I think. But for me, it's like when I'm in something, I'm often in it fully with my full attention and a lot of energy. And sometimes it's almost too much for people that I, go barreling in with that kind of like, let's do this, let's go, So but that for me is like it's something to do with having a lot of energy and attention focused at something, and that's that passion, right? Like, the things that um, the word passion invokes, it's often about desire or like sexual intimacy or something like that. And again, it's that like high energy, high intensity. So I don't know, it's like cranking up the volume on the emotional and energetic state somehow. So.
So if somebody wanted to cultivate that more in their life, it's maybe not that they
Hmm.
don't know what it is to be passionate,
Sure.
but let's say, I'd just like to bring more passion in my life. What are the kinds of
Right.
things you would have them practice?
Well, first of all, I'm going to jump back to where I started from, which was when I looked into the history of the word, and this is an apt time of year because it's almost Easter, and the word passion, of course, is related to Easter and the Passion of the Christ, which it turns out that the root of the word has to do with suffering, which is counterintuitive, right? Like I wouldn't think about, what I just described of this like really high energy and sort of like barreling into something with excitement and passion and desire, whatever that is, you wouldn't think of that as having anything to do with suffering. Like that's not the first thing that comes to mind when you see the word passion. And yet that's kind of like the etymology of the word is to do with this suffering. So I thought that was a really interesting link, not to say like, oh, okay, so the place to start for your play is to go out and suffer or something, but I think just to start by recognizing the connection somehow between the things that we tend to be passionate about are the ones that call because they hurt in a way. Like it's like there's something that you want to fix, or something you want to help, or some internal pain that pushes you or motivates you to take action on something, so that it doesn't become this, like, a lot of people talk about loving what you do and waking up every day and just being excited to get up and love what you do, but it may not be that. Like, passion might come from it hurts, or from a place of being lost, or from a place of not knowing what to do. Like, that might actually be the right starting point for passion, and not just this like love and happy excitement. So, sweetheart, I'm on a call, so if you could close the door and just keep quiet, okay? All right. My other child. This is part of Misfit life, is doing this work with lots of children in and out of it. So you'll notice that almost all of my projects and videos have a child's finger mark on them in some way. So, but anyway, so yeah. So as a starting point, just that recognition that and does not necessarily always start with a positive. That it also can come from this kind of place of pain, right?
So what's the difference between this passion, this intensity that you're talking about, and an obsession?
Ooh, good question. Obsession, and I'm thinking a lot. So I just came back from a trip to Nashville, and this is factoring into my thinking a lot because I went to the book launch of Jeff Goins' book, The Art of Work, and it talks a lot about finding your calling and this sorts of thing, and tells the stories of people that are pursuing their calling. And so when I think about obsession, I think about Chris Guillebeau recently wrote a book that was about people on quests. So like Chris visited every country in the world, and he had set a goal of doing this, so they do these really big things that are really difficult and big projects. And some of those people I would describe in his book as obsessed. And when I think of obsessed, I think of sacrificing maybe too much, like pursuing a goal at a high cost, right? Even to the people around you as well, not just to yourself. And and I think it can be worth it. But when I think about what Jeff is talking about, he's talking about still caring about your responsibilities to your family, to your friends, to yourself, to be a healthy and whole person. And so not pursuing your goal with such passion that you cause pain for the people around you. It's some sort of more balance. So I would say it has to do with like obsession is all about me in a way. It's like what I want to do, and passion, or like the kind of passion I'm talking about, has to do with service to others as well. And so there's some half and half. Like it's something that calls you and you have almost no choice about, but it's also something that is of service to other people. And so that's an important bit of it too, I would say.
There's a saying I can't remember it exactly, but where the your greatest gift meets the world's greatest need.
Right.
And that's
right.
your point of passion.
Yeah, exactly. But there's something in there, because obsession, when you do find something you're really passionate about, then the temptation is to work too hard and give too much. Like I see this in entrepreneurs all the time, right? Once you're on that track, it's like people will literally work themselves into the ground, and very long hours and that sort of thing, and make a lot of sacrifices. And I think that if I could say anything about passion, it's like trying to find the point where it doesn't carry you away, where you still have resources left for your family and friends and for yourself. And this is something I've been learning a lot about, like not over-giving or not having boundaries, like taking on other people's problems as your own. This all is connected together. But when you're passionate about something, there is an element of danger in it. Like it's a beautiful thing and it's a wonderful thing, but it's also like something that has that you can get carried away. And so it's like there's a note of caution to my like advice when on this topic. I think it's like, yes, cultivate it, but also like think about the cost, I would say. You
So
know?
where it energizes you rather than depletes you, and where it takes into account the others around you as well as yourself. It's
Yes,
kind of finding that
exactly.
balance point.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best pieces of advice I have taken from Jeff Goins from this trip is it's not all about you, right? And like that's really important. Like it's easy to make it all about me and what I want and what I love, but like there's more to the picture than just that. So.
So if we were to take this and kind of boil it into some steps that I've been hearing
Mhm.
from you, it might be to kind of take a look at your life and not look at necessarily, what jazzes you up, but kind of look at what's where are the things that you've grown? Where are the
Mhm.
places of pain that you've gone through suffering? And
Mhm.
where in then that's like step one, and then step two could be, and where could that serve others? Could be a
Yes.
step. And then
Mhm.
the one after that could be now take a look at what you're doing and find your balance point where you're energized, not depleted, and where you're serving and remembering those around you, and it's not just about you. So there's kind
Mhm.
of like an analysis piece in there that you can do.
Right. Right. Exactly. And especially I think there may be a lot of entrepreneurs and creative types reading this playbook because that's often like that's a lot of who we are as misfits. And I'm becoming more and more aware of all of us, our tendency to make too much of a sacrifice. And so one of the things like I've been learning over the course of these accountability calls that we do with the misfits is to actually put my own health at a higher priority, like getting enough sleep. And those, it's like I'm a better parent to my children when I don't overwork, when I get enough sleep. So it's these same things. It's like again, you don't think about passion being related to like how much sleep you get or something. Like it just seems like a really
Hmm.
strange tangent to take, but it's something to do with for me at least, passion is a high intensity, high energy thing, right? And then when you burn through that energy, there's this sort of like sense of
Yeah.
being depleted or having given or something like that, and often a crash afterward, right?
Yeah.
Like an exhaustion because you've used this energy. And so it's the importance of self-care in those moments of
So
actually
that could
taking
be
care of yourself so that
step
you can
two.
replenish. Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
So that's like another step is okay. So you find all that now. Make sure that you take care of your own self, because if you don't, if you're totally depleted, then all the
Right.
passion in the world, you're just going to be totally drained. So you've got to make sure you care
Hmm.
for yourself.
Right, exactly.
So what would you say to somebody who is on the other side of this, where maybe they're just struggling with, I just don't even know what I'm passionate about anymore. I can't figure
Yeah,
it out. Because you
yeah.
talk about, that's I've found something and I've gone way overboard. What about the person who's like, even if
Right.
they know what it is, just like I just can't get there anymore? What do you
Yeah,
say to them?
yeah. So there seem to be two pieces there. Like there's the ones that don't even know anymore, like what they care about, and I saw that a lot this trip too, with people feeling like I want to have a calling, or I feel like I have a calling, but I don't know what it is, and I don't know what to do, right? Like that not knowing. And the answer that just keeps coming back is do something, try something, like pick one, even if it's just some big, like, I have a friend that was like, I feel like I want to be outdoors more and I like climbing, and then he started doing more climbing. It's like, go do just a little thing that's in that direction and then just see what happens, right? So just do
Mhm.
something small that is something you're vaguely interested in and see what comes out of it, because you'll learn if you move in the right direction. You'll learn something,
Mhm.
even if it's, oh, I used to like climbing but now I just don't care about it anymore. Well, it's still a new piece of information, right? And
Mhm.
then there's the people that do know that, like, they love something but maybe they just don't have time anymore, their responsibilities have taken over, or they're just too burnt out to have any ability to pursue it. And it's sort of this like, um, my passion is dead because I just don't have enough energy anymore to care, something like that, and that's where I would say it's okay to let it go and give yourself more self-care, more rest, more of that, because if you just don't have the energy, you just don't have it. And it's like, give yourself permission to take a break, and then that passion will come back. Like a lot of times people are just exhausted. So,
So what we have about 10 minutes left, so I'm
mhm,
interested in hearing some stories from your life where the things that you've just talked about,
mhm.
actually, that this is where you get it from. So can you give us some examples from your own life about how you've found your passion and how you've cultivated it and not let yourself burn out?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the clearest thing is I'm now an artist, and for many years, I mean, now I can say, oh, I've always been, or I've been doing that for a long time. But there was a point where I didn't think of myself as an artist, and certainly wasn't working as a professional artist. And the story that I often tell is about the first Misfit Con, and I had a night in the art gallery where I was really exhausted and really drunk, and had sort of an epiphanic moment, or an epiphany, that, like, and it was very silly at the time. It was like, I'm a piece of art. That means that the art is in me, and that means I must be an artist. It was this very sort of like strange breakdown of how I got there. But I've been working on a book, and so I've been retelling these stories and working on them, and I actually traced that moment earlier in the year, and I'm like, am I going to tell this story? Yes, I am. Okay, so basically, I had been taking on a mushroom journey, a psychedelic trip, and during that was shown some of my artwork, and I started to really cry during this, and I said, I can make such beautiful things. Why am I not doing this all the time? And it was just this really deep grief. It was like, if I can make such beautiful things, why wouldn't I just want to do that all the time? It was very clear in that moment. And I actually had sort of buried and forgotten about it. It was months before I actually had the real epiphany in the gallery. And it didn't come back to me until much later. It was, part of many other things that I discovered during all these, adventures with substances. And it didn't stand out as something like revelation at the time. It wasn't until maybe my brain sat on it and worked on it for a few more months that it came back to me later. So when I was amazingly in an art gallery of all places, it's like the right environment had to be there too. So yeah, not that I'm saying, okay, what you need to do is go out and do some drugs, like nothing like that. It's the fact that I was seeking those answers. It's asking the questions. It's like, I knew that I wanted something more. I didn't know what it was. I spent a really long time in a lot of pain, just struggling, because I thought, all these other people seem to know what they're doing and I don't, and now looking back, it may seem like, oh, that answer was handed to me and I just, knew that I was an artist and everything was clear. But honestly, I think I could have picked any of half a dozen things I was interested in. I could have said, you know what, really, I'm a singer, and I could have gone off and pursued that. Or I could have said, really, I'm a writer, and I could have gone off and pursued that. And, at the time, that's the one that I happened to choose. But I think if you just pick something that you have an interest in and follow it, other things will come from that, and like mine happened to be art that I chose, and many other things have come from that, including this book that I'm writing. So, who says that I could say, oh, I decided I was a writer in that moment or something, like you don't know what's going to come out of it later. So, yeah. Did that answer the question?
There's some good stories. And um, do you believe that everyone has a single kind of calling, or do you think we have multiple talents and things that, as like you're saying, you just pick something and it'll happen? Or is there kind of
I
that
think
one passion that we put out there in the world?
um, I I think it's both, and that's weird to say, but it's so I have two possible explanations for what's going on with the calling thing running in parallel, and that's because I spent many years in an atheistic, rationalistic frame of mind, like probably 10 years, and then now I have more of a spiritual feeling about the world, and so I believe personally that it's sort of a spiritual calling, and that people are called. But during the 10 years when I didn't believe that, and I was very sort of much more focused on what we do here and now in this life, my explanation for it was we create meaning, like we choose meaning, and whatever meaning you choose, as long as it makes you happy, like it's likely to be better off for everyone involved, right? So like now I think it's both. I think it's you choose meaning, you could choose which thing you want to pursue, and you could choose to, decide that that's meaningful for you, and just by doing that, it benefits, I think, everyone that's connected to you. And I say that because if this was the only life we had and there was no sort of spiritual afterlife, then I think that it's to all of our benefit to make everyone as happy as possible. It just makes sense to me. That means you have to help other people and they have to help you. It's the best way. So yeah, like create that meaning. Choose something that is special to you. And then, if there is some sort of pre-design calling and it's like a spiritual thing and you're pursuing it, well, that's probably the best way you have a shot of fulfilling it, right? So just, weave them together and choose whichever storyline works, or both, and who knows? But I don't think it's something that we can have a clear answer to. I think Brett Henley on this trip pointed out that questions are much more interesting. Like there's always, like, you'll find better things if you keep asking questions than if you start with, predetermined answers. So
the art of the
yeah.
question. Well, and we're about ready to wrap up, so actually that's a great way to end, because I do have a question that
Sure.
I'd like to end with. And we've been asking this of everyone that we've been talking to for this interview series. And the question is, out of all the misfits that you have met, who would you like to hear from next in this interview series?
Oh, well, who's gone already?
Oh, let's see. We've had David and, oh gosh, who else have we talked to? I might need help from Nelson behind the scenes here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's all right. Who would I like to hear from?
Keith, we've heard from Keith.
I would like to hear from, is her name Amber, Brett's wife?
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Amber, is it
Yes.
McCormick? Okay.
I would love to hear from her next, and that's partly because I know she's quite introverted, and I've never had much of a chance to talk to her, and I'm very, very curious what she makes of all of this, because she's been to 2 Misfit Cons with us, and I would want to know what her thoughts are. So.
We will let her know. Thank you. And
sure.
Thanks for being part of this. Thanks for having the courage to speak up, and we appreciate you being part of the project too. You're a key writer too, on top of it all.
Thank you, and thank you for keeping everything going and organized and moving forward.
All right.
Right.
That's it. That's a wrap for this interview. Thanks.
You want to say bye, sweetie?
Bye. Bye.